Hey everybody, it is Jillian. Good morning. So, it is Hump Day Wednesday, and wow, such breakthroughs. The whole point of J Juice is sometimes you don't realize the breakthroughs, the openings, the triggers that you have until you just react so emotionally. Like something comes up for you that is just so intense and you're just like, oh my God, where did the hell this come from? And it gets triggered by something. That's part of the whole J juice. Is there things that we totally ignore that we do unconsciously? And then there are people in our lives that represent certain things of the past and the present, and they may exhibit the same or relatively similar characteristics through no fault of their own. That's just who people are. But they represent something to you that was really just stuffed deep down inside. And so, yeah, a lot of our issues in the world stem from our relationship with our parents, whether it's the mother or the father, or whoever represents those two categories. And so, yeah, when people say that, oh, yeah, you should never blame your mom and dad for anything, you got to take personal responsibility. Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying that they will always be at fault for your choices, but you have to recognize that if you're going to raise a kid, if you're going to raise a kid, then you have to acknowledge the shortcomings of your parents, but also look at how you relate to things, and you won't even know sometimes because people have suppressed so much trauma and so much anger and so much stuff, and they've suppressed it, and they've done alcohol, drugs, bunch of other stuff, find distractions. They never have to deal with it. And so they don't even know they have this issue. They just know that they've had their parents weren't perfect, and so they're going to try to do better with a new kid. And I'm just like, oh. And then I look at with me on the J Juice and everything that I've had to go and work through, and the layers and the layers and the layers on the J Juice. And I realize, yeah, you don't have to have a kid to know what it's like to raise a freaking kid, because you used to be a kid. Some of us are a kid at heart. Some of us have stopped growing up because of the trauma from a long time ago had stilted our growth. And so or some people were stuck in a specific place and never could really get out of it. And there's that's called dissociative, DID. Not to say I'm that, but definitely when people are in very extreme situations, for a lot of reasons, whether it's a boyfriend or a parent or a girlfriend, they get stuck in a place where there is so much trauma, and they loop and they loop and they loop. And so that right there could affect obviously how you would raise a child, of course. And so I going off on a tangent there. But anyway, sorry, I just kind of got lost there. But yes, so yes, I was once a kid. And that's right. Okay, there I'm getting back on train of thought. And so I know what it's like being raised by someone who has not resolved their shit, who has not resolved their issues. And so when I hear people say, well, yeah, we're going to have to set up a therapist for you because you're going to need one when you get to be of a certain age. And you're like, oh God, therapy is innovation that serves to just smooth over the issues from the past so that way you can move on. Not really resolve them, just smooth it over. And so, yeah. So if you know what it's like being raised by people, then you would know what's wrong with parents out there. You would know what's wrong with our society. You could then see the outcomes of parents who have unresolved issues. Okay? And so these are some these are some major stuff that is hard to tackle because you're like, well, you don't have any kids, so how can you know? No, you don't need to have kids to know what it's like to be a kid in this society, what it's like and what is optimal a child obviously needs balanced parents, but they need parents that have resolved their issues. How can you have a new generation with new ideas unless you're being commodified? When you're being commodified, they want your kid as a prototype, and some will, with their special needs and their special situations, may take to a certain programming. And you've seen, shows of biographies on people that had these special gifts because of certain conditions, neurological conditions, and then they were exploiting that. And then when that person glitched or couldn't produce anymore, just like you've seen Rain Man, that's the epitome of exploiting someone with special gifts. And so that's why they showed Rain Man back in the 80s, because that's what the future is holding, is that the more messed up you are, the more potential innovation you're going to have from your offspring. But that's just no different than doing experiments in a lab with living things that have a soul, that can feel, that can learn, that know who they are. They're not just some zombie entity. So that's the thing, is that people, that most people don't realize that the stuff, that the experiments in the labs and the people that partake in them, they're a soul, they're an entity, they're a thinking, feeling person. They're going through this trauma of experimentation. Well, that's the same thing as the people who are commodifying their bodies for science, for their friends, for their family. They're a soul, they're a person. And so are your kids. And I know people try to do the best they can for their kids, but if you haven't changed your biochemistry, if you haven't changed your kids' biochemistry, then yeah, they're going to be ripe for exploitation, because they won't be able to really defend themselves. They'll be always constantly ridiculed by someone who knows their weaknesses and will try to exploit that. And that's the hardest thing that most parents don't want to hear, especially when they have a special needs child, is that they realize that kid is not going to be protected unless somebody is always there to protect that kid. And that's a horrible way to live, knowing that you're not, if you think that you should die, you're not going to be around forever to protect your kid. And you hope that when you pass away, that your kid's going to have some sorts of protection or some way to get along in this world. But I'm telling you right now, everything in this world is like a sink or swim. And you have to be savvy enough to go and help yourself. Even if, well, yeah, the resources, the technology that you have to know and penetrate so you can get your needs met. And then the relationship things that these kids that have so many issues are going to be dealing with. Because, yeah, that's the thing with parenting. It's where you resolve all of your issues, like all of them, biochemically. And that would give your kid like the best leg to stand on. And that does, that's going to be like virtually impossible, because yeah, first it's the jelly juice. There's no other way. But then most people don't really pay attention to their kid that close. They do on some level, but for the most part, they're just going to do what the usual party line is, do all the traditional stuff, do what's accepted in the family and the community, and that's the extent of it. They're going to let the school system and the government determine where their kid's future is going to lay. And so that's kind of the world that we live in. And so, to you discerning parents on the J juice, and you don't need to tell me that you're giving it to your kid, that is your personal thing. But I'm telling you, the gift to your child is going to be getting them on the path of balance as they're growing up. And it's going to be difficult, because you have to lay your foot down, or put your foot down. You got to lay down the law. If you can't even lay down the law on other things, where the kid just drives the whole situation and they get whatever they want, there's no way you're going to get them to do, not even J juice, but to get them to understand concepts on a larger scale, on a deeper scale. Yeah, it's easy to program a kid to love toys and to be all infatuated with toys, maybe learning, maybe not. educational toys. But then that sets them up for being commodified. Because if they see value in a bunch of toys and then they're addicted to all the toys and the hormones that it elicits, then yeah, then it's easier to get them into some kind of profession and right, do it the carrot stick methodology of like, yeah, you want this toy, you got to go work for it. Oh, and here, go into this innovative industry and spin out some widgets and you can have your toy. And that is how you get a slave to work and have them like their slave mentality, is you get them addicted to things and substances. And then you always have that right in front of them. Come on, do this job, do this thing, and you can have your little escape, whatever that gives you a rush. And so that's yeah. But then, that's the world we live in right now. But then I'm talking about biofortified food. And biofortified food is streamlining the nutrients and the minerals in the food supply and making them a very simple but complex food that doesn't require a lot of infrastructure. So then you don't have to pay people a low wage, which means you have to foster that kind of personality that's okay with living a low wage. And when you are okay with living with a low wage, you don't really have, it's like you have to almost be at a certain level of existence. I'm trying to figure out the rest without insulting anybody. I'm not saying that low-wage workers aren't deep thinkers, but if there is a chance to not be a low-wage worker, most people won't do it unless they have no other skill sets. And so how do you get someone? So yeah, then you bring in the people from overseas. You open up the borders. Because Americans are very smart. They just haven't figured out how to utilize their strengths. And so they want to get paid a really high wage for some really menial work that it's just like doesn't make sense really. And so yeah, I can see why Biden opens up the borders. Because there are people that get like $1 a month that would be so happy to get $1 a freaking day. Now that's pretty bad. But if they get paid $15 an hour to go and sweep the floors or pick crops that you wouldn't do as an American, yeah, somebody's getting their needs met. And so, yeah, so at some point, Americans got to figure out what exactly they are here for and why. And that, yeah, to get the things that you want, not what you need, it's going to take more of a higher frequency, a higher intelligence to even get to that point. It really is. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Do the J Juice. Give your kids that best foot forward so they're not competing for a fucking McDonald's job. Nothing wrong with McDonald's job, but I think most people want to achieve higher than just McDonald's. But then those that don't, then that creates the infrastructure of why then we're doing a reset. When someone has no ambition to go above just cranking out widgets, then yeah, that's a certain mentality that has to be that has to be supported. And then glitches happen. I've had the privilege of living on the West Coast, so I see, and I've been in very expensive neighborhoods, okay? I had an expensive background. Not that it was really given to me, but I was in that community. I bought my own car, everything I did on my own for the most part, even my college. And I was a nanny for trust fund kids, okay, that really have no fear in the world of being broke or having to really do it on their own, because they always have mommy and daddy or somebody in their extended family that's going to make sure that they will never need or want for anything. Which I'm like, okay. And then I've lived in places like Middle America. I've scrapped, I've done, everything like for the most part on my own, or I've worked with people who helped me from the bottom up. And so that right there creates character, but it also will expand your capacity to be innovative. And so, yeah, the kids that don't, the kids that really have no ambition except to do what mommy and daddy is doing, if they can do that, will accept the $15 hour to jobs. And then you have to create that support system, that infrastructure for that $15 an hour job, which means you have to have the bars, you have to have all the distractions. Because what else are they going to do in between their 8 hours of work or 15 hours of overtime? You have to have the infrastructure to support that shit. Okay? And so that doesn't take somebody having a kid to know this. That's pure economics. And so, yeah, when we can streamline the food supply, less infrastructure where we have to pay a very low wage to people in America, and the people that are really happy with the low wage of $15 an hour to do McDonald's, they're from like Mexico, they're from, Nicaragua, they're from down south. Because yes, a lot of our humans in America take shit for granted. We've raised people to not only commodify their body parts, but commodify their friends and family, commodify everything, their dog, everything, the air, whatever they do, everything is commodified, everything has a price, which I understand nothing's for free. But then it teeters on the edge of exploitation. And that's where a lot of parents exploit their kids. Whether it's for activism, because they need to feel they have a purpose. So what do? They have a special needs child. They have a special needs this. They're going to go an activist and say, I want you to bring donations, do this. And they make a point that this is now their goal in life, is to be an advocate for their child. When really, do the J juice and get your kid's brain back into order. You deal with your issues, mom and dad, that you've been running away from your whole freaking life. Get your house in order. So that way you don't have to use your kid or use your dog or use your parents or use anyone in your life to be exploited to give you a purpose. You will have created and innovated your own purpose independent of the people in your world. They're not the reason why you're an activist. Maybe they are in an indirect way. You don't want to end up like them. But you're not using them or exploiting them so you can have a purpose in life. And that's the thing about parenting. Is your kid a commodified product that is a social ticket? And so, yeah, I see a lot of people, that have kids because they want to be part of that parenting, the PTA, have the birthday parties, and it's accepted in that community and the family. But is it really for the benefit of the child, or is it for the benefit of the parent? Just like the whole thing with the college exams. If the kid goes to Harvard, whether the kid's qualified or not, if they pay $6 million to get their kid into Harvard, it means the parent was good enough they got their kid into Harvard. That's why there's so much corruption, because so many people have so many unresolved issues, and they exploit their kids to fulfill what they couldn't do in their own world. And they don't appreciate what they did contribute. So they use their kids as a vehicle. And so, yeah, I could see that just because you had a kid doesn't mean that you know what the fuck you're doing. So, yeah, I have every reason to have some kind of comment about raising children, because I was once a child. And I see so many mothers out there and so many fathers out there, and some walk away because they can't deal with the other parent. The other parent is so fucking toxic that they would rather walk away from their kid than have to be abused their whole life by being connected. And a lot of kids that come from that situation don't realize this, and they hate that parent that walked away. But the parent had to save themselves from that toxic person. Because I'm telling you, I'm telling you, just because somebody walks away from their family doesn't mean they didn't love that kid, or they know the kid's going to figure it out. It's a crapshoot whether or not your presence is going to make them better. They're going to be with it. They have the genetics, and there's enough resources out there. Every kid's going to have to figure it out. There's going to be no perfect situation. And so I'm tired of people saying, well, you should have been there. Well, the reason why people are not there for their kids, none of which anyone can judge, because they're not that person. And so that's why you have to question, if you're a mom, why are you having this kid? As a weapon? As an exploitation? As a way to fulfill and make you feel like this is your only accomplishment? It's not that hard to have a child. It really isn't. Just go have sex. Maybe you're fertile. You'll have a kid. But it's who you're being paired with and who you're going to be attached to now for the rest of your life. If you've chosen to have sex with so many different people and you have 5 kids from 5 marriages, and then you want to go and demonize the father because they weren't around, because they didn't want to be around you, who the fuck are you? So yeah, we have to question why people are having children. Why? But then they're used as a commodity. That's why people get money for having children, because children are a commodity and they become commodified adults. And so yeah, I could say this stuff because I was once a kid. That's all. I mean, and I do have something to say about it because I see it all over. But that's what our society is. It's about breeding because it's for business purposes. Yeah, you can be all, positive about it. Like, oh yeah, it's just carrying on the family line. Okay. If there's so many predispositions and issues with your family line, what are you bringing into this world? And that's why the Georgia Guidestones. Now I understand what's going on here. I mean, and the gods know this. Why do I say the gods? Because yes, Greek mythology is not Greek mythology. It's Greek fucking history. And they know this. That's why there's so many churches. That's why there's so many preachers. That's why there's so many religions, because they know there's a higher power that did give us this gift of intelligence and did give us the gift of breeding. And they also commodified us. Even back then, they're still commodifying us. Do we know who they are? No, because we don't have giants of the day anymore. We don't have the Nephilim. They've been bred out of existence. And if they do exist, they're never where you're going to see them. And if there are aliens and spaceships, they're never going to come down and say, hey, here we are, because most humans who are not open to new information will try to destroy that. So guess what? They take in a form of a human or a spirit in your dreams. Okay, so you'll never know if you spoke to a higher power or not, because they'll look just like you. Or they'll be in your dreams and it'll just be a dream to you. You won't, if you're that disconnected from yourself, then you won't realize that a higher power is speaking to you. You'll just forget it or just chalk it up as just, a crazy dream. But most people are disconnected from themselves and they're under a fog of drugs, alcohol, and sex, that they'll really never know who they truly are. And so, yeah, you can have a bunch of kids who really don't know who they are. They'll be easily exploited. And they will be. They'll turn into like the cute little spring breakers who have nothing to them because they're on diets and doing little yoga, drinking alcohol, and then being drugged. And then they're going to be exploited by somebody who sees them as a target. They've lived in their little bubbles of their yuppie communities in Laguna Beach or whatever. And they go off to places like spring break, and there's people there that have nefarious intentions, and they won't know because they were taught an entitled lifestyle. Their parents didn't really care to teach them about the world and gave them whatever they wanted. And then we have articles in magazines or articles on Facebook that you have another victim. So what are we raising? More victims and more predators? That's the thing where I could say I don't need to have a kid to see what's wrong in our society, that we're raising victims or we're raising predators, and we're raising people who are disconnected from themselves, who don't want to face their humanity and face their divinity, and who are always trying to find a way to escape their life through drugs, through alcohol, through sex, through whatever. Now, I'm not a purist. I am not a purist. I'm not a religious person. I'm not a purist, but I see my society the way I've had to deal with it. And so me being on the J juice, I can see with more clarity on what's going on. And no, I don't need to go to a church to go pray to any gods. I don't need to pray to any gods. I just need to be in touch with myself, in touch with all my shit, and deal with it and face it and know where it comes from. I had to know exactly where I came from as far as a human. I don't need to know who my parents are. That's actually irrelevant. I was adopted, yeah. I was raised by people that knew this stuff. Since figured out. And my mom knew a whole lot more of what I'm talking about right now. The Greek mythology. I understand the Illuminati and fostering and exploiting the divine potential of humans by then, yes, doing chemical manipulations and whatever else. Okay. So, yeah, I know what's going on. And so I can speak about it, and I don't need to worship anyone or anything. I just need to be aware of the world that I live in. I want to know where I came from. And I came from a line of people who somehow, somehow knew that humanity was fucking up. Humanity is just gone over the edge. And so I recognized, at first I was kind of upset about the conspiracy world and the Georgia Guidelines. Oh, they're trying to kill us. But when you have 100 serial killers and 20 people, you really want to go and foster more serial killers? Or do you want to have more balance in your society? If it means that you have to be the one to balance yourself out so you're not being depopulated, repurposed, then you at least have the freaking choice. That's the whole thing with the Jilly Juice, is you're given a choice. That's why they put me on freaking Dr. Phil, to exploit me, yes. Because let me tell you, it was entertaining. Go to Dr. Phil and Jilly Juice. Oh yeah, you'll see everybody freaking mocking me. The vipers in our society, the misogynists who want to cancel people out with a different thought process. But at least they gave you a fucking choice. If you know about Jilly Juice and you don't do it, then you can't really blame anyone but yourself of why it is that you're succumbing to the depopulation agenda. Because it is one. But it's about evolution. When you're being purposely repurposed through evolution, that seems like a conundrum. How could evolution kill you? Because you are leaking on the back end. That's the kicker, is that the evolution, the innovation is what's killing people. Okay? Because they don't have enough of what it takes to handle the action potential. All they have is what they've worked with, but the atmosphere wasn't as charged as it is now. And so now the atmosphere is so charged, their aging process is now accelerated. Like 100-fold. And so, yeah, you're going to see people evolve very quickly. Shit. My feelings this last weekend came up was so quick and so freaking insane. It was like I couldn't even hold back the deluge. If you watched I had a video where I did take down because I was freaking out. It was bad. But it wasn't that bad, but I'll tell you what, I was just letting everything out. There's everything. And I took the video down because I'm just like, okay, it's a little too cathartic. But there was a video prior to that kind of alluded to the fact that that's where I was going. And then you can see all of my posts about acknowledgement, love, and respect in women. Because, yeah, your first experience with a relationship is with your parents. And if it's fucked up with your parents, you're going to have a fucked up relationship with people from that point forward. And then people will be commodities to you because you will not see anything deeper. Because you never had a deep relationship with your parent, or they're so deep that they exploited you. And then you question, then you wonder, are they with me because they like me, or are they with me because they want to exploit me and commodify me and get whatever they want? And that's the issue that I've had, is why do why do people hang out with me? The people I know on the JJs, I understand why. But anyone else out there, you know, when I'm with my husband, well, are they with me because of my husband, or they like me because of my husband, or do I stand on my own? And I realized I wasn't standing on my own with people, then that's what pissed me off. And that's what triggered me, is I don't think I stand on my own with people. It's because I'm with Jason. That's why. Which, okay, great. I guess everybody has to have their social stuff, and one person has given them that access. But I'm not looking for status. I'm looking for depth. I don't give a fuck about status. I mean, it's fun, I guess. But I really want to get to know the people. I like people. Do they like me? Well, if my shit offends you and I speak to your listening because you exemplify what I'm talking about, yeah, you're probably not going to like me. And if you do like me, it's because it's my husband or something. I don't know. I'm just assuming, because I don't know. That's the shit that I have to deal with, because I don't really know. You know, when you're raised in a situation where you're not sure why it is you're there, are you an experiment, or are you really someone and then you realize, hold on a second. You're confused about now every relationship from that point forward. Why is this person with me? And then you're going to test every single relationship. I know my husband tested me in the beginning. I could tell I was going through some many tests with him. And so, yeah, when you're faced with the fact of who you are to people, what you think you are to people, and they keep confirming it, then yeah, it's going to blow you for a loop until you come to terms with that. So yeah, so this electricity is charging people up. It's charging me, charging you. So that's the thing. Evolution is going to kick humanity's ass because they don't have what it takes. So now you have to do the J juice, and shit's going to come up for you. Oh, you're going to cry. You're going to have cathartic moments. You're going to feel physical pains. You're going to look at people now differently because you thought they were one thing and they're really another. I'm telling you, you're going to go through the majorest evolutionary trips you've ever been on with the J juice, because now you're going to redistribute the hormones that used to give you the fantasy world, and now you're going to see the reality, and it's going to be not very pretty. It's going to be downright ugly, but at least you'll know what the reality is, and then you can make things beautiful, because you will know how to draw your boundaries. You will know how to set up your life correctly, and then just observe what goes on in the world, and you can call everything on the world, because now you see how predictable humanity is. Because all programming, like Patricia was saying, that yeah, when you understand computer programming and crypto something, then you realize humans are just as programmable and just as predictable. And yes, humans are serotonin junkies until they get out of that portion of their world. And serotonin junkies and dopamine junkies also are in the activist world, where they exploit their issues and exploit their kids, and they exploit their parents. Those are also dopamine and serotonin junkies because of unresolved issues in their world. And so, yes, I could talk about how to raise a kid. Take care of your shit, parents. Resolve your issues. And guess what? You're going to make sure your kid resolves the issues that you gave to them biochemically. And that's how we can raise balanced human beings, once the parents figure out their shit first. But if the parents don't see a problem with themselves, then the kids definitely won't down the road. And therein lies the problem. And that's why the Great Reset. So I get it. And it is what it is, but it's interesting. It's fucking fascinating. But I want to have a voice on this, because so many people are turning to having kids thinking that's the way out. That's the holy grail. No, that's just more of a reflection that's more of a magnification of everything you've never achieved or ever achieved. One of the two, or both. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.